Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the final round of the Swarbrick.com Formula Alpha Championship for 2024. We're here this evening at the infamous Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Canada. What a fantastic venue to be rounding out what has been a great season of racing here for the AROC Racing Leagues. Employing, of course, the Formula Alpha car RSS Supreme Hybrid. Fine Formula One machinery, so capable, so fast, so complicated, and such a challenge for these drivers. Just over 5 minutes to go now in this session. This session currently being led by Will Inglis. 112.3 on the timing boards for Will. Everyone on the C5 tyre, of course, in this session. That soft, aggressive compounder tyre. Not going to last long, might not last a race distance, but it's certainly going to provide the speed that you need here in qualifying. And a few drivers do have a need for speed. One of those is Alex Smith. I can confirm he is in this session. He's not yet set a fast lap, has just over 5 minutes to go. And he's, of course, in the mix for a bit of silverware here. So let's have a look at how the championship is shaping up at the moment as we move over to our championship standings. We're on board there with Alan Thomas live as well. As you can see there, the championship currently being led by Alex Smith, 296 points to his name. Will Inglis very close behind on 283 there. But as you can see on the right-hand side, have a look at those dropped scores, ladies and gentlemen. There are a couple of rounds every season where you have to take as a dropped score. And that is kind of that's your chance to have a bit of an off day. That's your chance to have a round or race that doesn't really go your way, that you can kind of put there and keep that in your backpack in case you need to, well, you need any help you can get later on in the season. Alex Smith hasn't had that opportunity, of course, but Will Inglis certainly has. Sorry, other way around, really. Alex Smith has taken some dropped scores. Will Inglis hasn't. What that's meant is that Will Inglis is on 283 points. Alex Smith has dropped 6 points. That was his worst scoring round of the season. And that means he's only 7 points clear of Will Inglis in this championship fight. A championship fight which is very much on, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, over 50 points available to these drivers here this evening. And as I say, only 7 points between our two championship leaders. Also, drivers to note, Matt Daly doing well there in a bit of no man's land. He won't really see any change, so to speak, in terms of the standings, unless Paul Millman takes double victory pretty much. It'll be Matt Daly P3. Paul Millman with an outstanding season this season for Paul. He's coming home with P4, 186 points to his name so far. Of course, the championship standings will alter as we head through the evening's racing, so this will be updated. And then we have Andrew Brammer, 177, not here this evening, unfortunately. Likewise, Jack Hodson, P6. Steve Knight, P7. He's very close behind indeed. Barry Clayton, who is present this evening, on 150 points, so he should be jumping up the order fairly substantially. And then we have Alan Thomas here as well. Good to see Alan back, 109 points on the board, the last driver to make it into the triple digits in terms of scores. He's been nice and consistent in terms of his attendance and in point scoring this season, so he's rewarded with that. As I say, so much going on in the championship standings for the final round. And let's have a look at the final few minutes of qualifying now, as we see heading down the start-finish straight. Do you think after 12 rounds I would have got a bit more au fait with the liveries on some of these cars? I'm ashamed to say I haven't. We were on board with Jack Hodson. We're currently on board with Barry Clayton at the moment. Barry Clayton is heading over. Sorry, we're not on board with Barry Clayton at all. We're back on board with Jack Hodson. He's coming towards the end of Sector 1, is Jack Hodson, which is some of the most technical parts of this lap. You've got some of the slower corners. I say some of the... I'm already completely and utterly confused. Everything's changed. We've got new scenes in OBS. We've got a new microphone, which hopefully you can hear and enjoy my voice on, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm clearly all over the place already. That's, of course, not one of the slower sections of the lap. It's one of the quicker sections of the lap in terms of its corners, because there's some relatively high-speed corners. I say relatively. That's relative to the other corners here at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. Pretty much this track is straight lines and then heavy braking zones into tight radius corners. Sector 1 being the outlier there. As we see, Matt Daly has joined in. We've also got Alex Smith currently running in P2. He's 7/10 off Willingliss at the moment. Willingliss is looking strong. It is going to be so down to the wire for these top 2 drivers fighting in this championship. We're on board with Alex Smith at the moment. He's heading through towards the end of Sector 1, getting ready to run down towards some of the faster parts of the lap. I'm going to go on board with him, actually, if possible, as we want to see some very fast F1 machinery travelling at very high speeds, I think. That's what we haven't seen too much of so far this evening. And Alex Smith might not be too focused, actually, on what's going on out in front in terms of the qualifying order. He might be a little bit concerned about Barry Clayton because, yes, of course, everyone wants to get on pole, as we see a little bit of a lock-up there heading into the hairpin. Everyone wants to be on pole, but it's not the end of the world if you end up on the front row of the grid, because you're still in the mix. You can still go for a move heading into the first corner. But if Barry Clayton's able to usurp Alex Smith and take P2, that's going to demote Alex Smith all the way down to the second row of the grid, and that is not ideal when you're trying to fight for the final few points in a championship battle. And what a championship battle it has been. It started off strong, of course, for Alex Smith. Did this Swarbrick.com Formula Alpha Championship. Race win after race win. It was a double race win in the first round. Another race win second with a podium after that. And then another race win at the third round. A double race win at the fourth round. And then that's where things started to go a little bit awry for Alex Smith. A little bit of misfortune here or there. And then a few rounds where, unfortunately, Alex wasn't able to attend. Such is the way of life, really. And then Willingliss was able to capitalise upon that. So the next round after that, it was a double win for Willingliss. And then we had kind of fighting in the midfield for both of those drivers, with Matt Daly taking a race victory and some of our midfield drivers, the likes of Jack Hodson and Andrew Brammer, taking podiums from that mid-season event there. And then as we move into the later mid-season, we start to see more wins for Willingliss once again. And Alex Smith hasn't actually enjoyed, apart from the previous race at Monaco, hasn't enjoyed a race win. He had a race win dry spell of 9 races. That is 4 rounds and then a little bit more as well with that first race at Monaco. So that is a long time to go without a race win in a championship, and that is when Willingliss really started hunting down Alex Smith in the standings. So as I say, it all comes down to the wire now, and it is going to be coming down to the wire here in qualifying. It's 10 seconds left of this session. Drivers will be able to complete the final couple of laps if they are starting them now, so fret not if you're out on track for some reason and need me to tell you how to negotiate a race weekend. It's slightly alarming if true, but the checkered flag does drop, and it will be Matt Daly who's going to be coming across the line first. He's currently in P8, losing out through the middle sector, so I don't know if it's going to be the most competitive lap time ever. And actually, he's hit the wall of champions, has Matt Daly. That is Matt Daly at the bottom of the order here in qualifying. Next, it will be Alex Smith, who looked like he was going to get a little bit slow through the hairpin there. Let's see what he can do at this stage. Heading through the wall of champions, doesn't clatter the wall there, comes across the line to 113 that he needs to beat. It's looking good. It's a 112.4. It's really good, but it's not quite good enough for Alex Smith. Still P2 here as we watch Willingliss, provisional pole sitter, of course, in the black carbon car, heads down the start, finish straight, crosses the line, doesn't improve, doesn't need to improve, and brings the car home on provisional pole. I say provisional because it looks like Jack Hodson is still on a bit of a flyer. He's going to be coming towards the end of the first sector in just a moment. I should mention that very tight final sector there, as it goes a little bit wrong on this lap, is only a 9-second sector, but Jack Hodson went fastest out of anyone in this session. I suspect, though, with that small error towards the end of this sector, it's gone a little bit wrong for Jack Hodson, and that's going to be it for this qualifying. Let's just see as the final couple of cars head back in to the pits. Yep, that's Matt Daly back in the pits as well. Just Jack Hodson left, as Paul Milman actually dives out of the pits. So maybe getting some practice in, I'm not too sure. But we are on board with Jack Hodson at the moment as the DRS opens, heading down the back straight here. Prime overtaking opportunity, of course, to watch out for here in the racing. A bit too much curb there for Jack Hodson. That was very brave indeed. That must have hurt back on re-entry there. Mechanics are not going to be happy with that one. The rear suspension, the differential, and the gearbox are not going to be happy with that either. And that brings an end to our qualifying running here for the finale at Montreal. We'll catch you in a few moments as we get ready for race 1 for the final round of the Swarbrick.com Formula Alpha Championship. And welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. Just over 10 seconds to go now until lights out. Here we are, Will Inglis, Alex Smith, battling as we head into that first corner. Watch out as well for Jack Odds and Barry Clayton. We have 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away for 25 minutes of racing here at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. Running, it's a good start indeed. It's a very good start there for Alex Smith. But it's Will Inglis who has the inside of the first corner, who stays out in front. Under pressure is Alex Smith from Jack Hodson there. Jack Hodson getting a getaway. That was quite impressive as well. Matt Daly in the midst there. Let's watch out for him. He's effectively running a reverse good race at this point. He's just making it a little bit more difficult for himself at the start of the weekend. We're heading through to the 7th corner already. The corners come thick and fast here at the Circuit de Gilles Villeneuve. And it's a strong start for everyone, actually. Everyone gets away cleanly. That's what we like to see. It's not always a given, especially in the touring car ring, but it's nice to see the Formula cars being able to do so. Our penultimate race of this season, ladies and gentlemen. We're already heading through the hairpin before we head back onto the Casino Straight. for the end of the first lap. A surprisingly short lap here at the Circuit de Villeneuve. It looks like quite a big track, but actually when you're in such fast machinery, everything just flies by. This back straight, of course, providing a little bit of a challenge for the real-life Formula 1 drivers. Just a weekend ago, of course, with all that rain out on track. Dry conditions here, though, and let's have a look at those tyre compounds. It's a C2 tyre for Will Inglis as he starts the next lap of this race. Alex Smith quickly in tow. He's on the C4. That is a bold choice from Alex Smith. We'll dive into that in just a moment, but we're enjoying a battle here between Jack Hodson, Matt Daly, and Paul Millman. There's Alan Thomas in the mix as well. Contact between Alan Thomas and Paul Millman. I think just a little bit of a concertina effect there. Alan Thomas ends up making contact with Paul Millman, and that is Paul Millman out of the running effectively, and Matt Daly underground. Okay, that's one way to bury your head into the sand there, but it's Jack Hodson still running in P3 at the moment, 5 seconds ahead of Alan Thomas. Barry Clayton also looking like he's got some damage as well, and he does there. That is front and rear wing completely destroyed on Barry Clayton's car. That is a great shame. He was one of the drivers I mentioned, of course, that was very much in the mix to be improving their position in the championship standings, but he's going to find himself struggling with that challenge at this stage because he's in the pits for some repairs. Let's have a look back at the front end of the field, and it's Will Inglis on the DRS there in what is looking like a very strong race start indeed for Will Inglis. 3 seconds clear of Alan Thomas already, and should I mention, he's on the harder compound of tyre. Will Inglis on the C2 tyre, Alex Smith on the C4, as I say. What that means is Alex Smith had the tyre advantage at the start of this race to get that good launch, has the upper hand in terms of getting the tyres heated up quickly and having more mechanical grip early on to try and push past Will Inglis and take the lead of the race. However, Will Inglis later on is going to have more grip. Those tyres are going to be happier as we go later into the race. He can push harder as well. He can continue to battle on without having to care too much about how his tyres are looking. Alex Smith does not have that luxury, as I say, and unfortunately that strategy hasn't quite worked out for him. 3 seconds off the lead of this race, and Alex Smith is still not able to challenge Will Inglis despite those softer compound of tyres. He is still leading the championship, is Alex Smith, but only by 7 points. And what is the difference between P1 and P2 in the point score? It's 2 points. Sorry, it's not 2 points at all. I said that so permanent. It is 7 points. So things are not looking completely ideal for Alex Smith at this point. Will Inglis, another purple sector. Alan Thomas, more damage on his car. He does continue on though, currently running in P5. Paul Millman is up into P4, and Jack Hodson is in the Wall of Champions. Thank you very much. Bit of a commentator's curse there. Sorry, Jack. I've done that a couple of times recently with Jack Hodson. We've cut to him on camera, and I've just ruined his race. So I do apologise for that, Jack. You have got no front wing left, but at least you are able to continue on. We saw, of course, many a driver in Formula 1 getting a little bit confused by the existence of the Wall of Champions. George Russell, I believe, was one, a couple of others as well, and we're seeing that being echoed here in the AROC Racing Leagues so far this evening. 4.5 seconds separates Alex Smith and Will Inglis at this point in time. Will Inglis leading quite a comfortable lead at this point. Barry Clayton still sitting in the pits. 5 minutes into the race, I am not quite sure if he's going to be able to continue on, which is a great shame. Hopefully we'll see him back and fighting for some more points in the reverse grid race coming up later on this evening. We go back on board though with our race leader, Will Inglis, of course, running in P2 in the championship, P1 in this race. And as we were alluding to before in qualifying, it has been a strong second half of the season for Will Inglis. Race victories, round 14, round 15, round 16, and round 19 and 20. Has been a great drive late on for Will Inglis, with Alex Smith really having the upper hand early on. Let's have a look at some of those race wins. Actually, now, I'm not about to reveal some very fancy highlights reel system. I am working on that, by the way. If I can get that sorted, I would very much like to integrate such a thing. Not able to quite do that just yet, as Alan Thomas does dive into the pits. Hopefully he hits a quick pit stop for his sake, because he will be able to jump back out. He might be a lap down by that point, but he'll still be able to take away some points from this first race of the evening. And there we have Alan Thomas jumping back out of the pit. It was a bit of a kick steak, Sauber steak, beef Wellington, whatever they're called, style pit stop there. It took quite a while, but he was able to jump back out of the pits. Eventually, a pit stop, of course, cost effectively Lando Norris a race when he had to pit on the safety car in order to get any form of advantage. Just unfortunately, his nearest rivals were able to pit earlier on. Of course, weren't quite caught by the safety car just yet, so we're able to dive in. The timing just worked out a little bit better for them. And we're having Jack Hodson jumping into the pits as well. What is going on, everyone? Why are we all jumping into the pits all of a sudden? We don't have any requirement to jump into the pits to change tyre compound as we do in the world of Formula 1. Drivers are, of course, free to do that if they wish. However, I've never really seen it done in a sprint race and work. The sprint race format, of course, just over 25 minutes long. You're going to be hard pressed to push a set of tyres so hard that it's beneficial in terms of overall pace to swap tyres. Maybe we are seeing that though. Who knows? Yes, just looking at some of these race wins here for Will Inglis. It was round 1 at Monaco, of course, with round 2 going to... Sorry, race 1 at Monaco with race 2 going to Alex Smith, of course. And then he had a race win in Miami, a race win in Shanghai. Then before that, he enjoyed a double victory in Suzuka as well. Before that, he shared a race win at Melbourne with Alex Smith. Neither of those two took a race win, with Matt Daly taking a race win at Jeddah, rather. But apology, no, completely wrong there. Alex Smith did also take a race win at Jeddah, and then before that, we had a double victory for Will Inglis in Bahrain. Before we are followed by, at the very start of the season at least, double victory in Barcelona for Alex Smith, and then another victory in Istanbul with actually, who took that second race win? I can tell you who took that second race win. It was Andy Craker, of course. Did very well in the touring cars season a few weeks prior. After that, it was another race win for Alex Smith in Silverstone, with Matt Daly joining him on the podium there, and then it was a double race win in Imola. And since then, Alex Smith has not taken double victory at any round so far for the rest of that season, really. So what was such an incredible start, a start that looked like he was going to absolutely romp away with things, has been rather turned around by Will Inglis' strong pace late on. A few double race victories as well for Will. But is this Alex Smith's last chance to try and get that double race victory in? Well, I will be impressed. It's a 4-second margin at the moment, and perhaps more importantly in terms of strategy in this race, it's a 4-second margin while Alex Smith is on the harder compound of tyre. That means that Will Inglis is on the harder compound of tyre, Alex Smith on the softer compound of tyre, of course. That is going to give Alex the early race grip advantage, as I say, but late on, is going to be a force to be reckoned with. He's actually on the hardest. Well, we have Will Inglis on the C2, then we also have Paul Millman and Alan Thomas on the C2. Alan Thomas has had to drop into the pit, so you rather wonder whether or not it would be worth jumping onto the C3s, matching Jack Hodson, of course. Jack Hodson, after dropping into the pits, promotes Paul Millman up into P3. Paul Millman, we saw having a few issues earlier on, but has recovered well from that. He was running around about the P5, P6 margin when he had that contact with Matt Daly and Alan Thomas. Now finds himself running on the podium, so it's been a good race for Paul Millman, rather, and it might be looking to be a good race here for Alex Smith. In terms of their pace at the moment, it's a 1:14.7 for Alex Smith. It's a 1:15.1 on that last lap for Will Inglis. Now, I should add, Will Inglis, his delta's looking good on this current lap that he's currently on. Where are we heading with Will Inglis at the moment? We are heading through towards the end of Sector 1, where we see he does a 28.5, jumps on that DRS, the flap, the rear wing opens. Yes, it's good pace at the moment for Will Inglis, even better pace for Alex Smith in terms of their best pace at the moment, a 14.3 for Alex Smith and a 14.1 for Will Inglis. That's Will Inglis' best lap of this race so far. Let's see how Will Inglis responds, though, to that slight charge from behind. I should mention perhaps a little bit late to be mentioning the small intricacies of this championship at the finale round, but of course, the DRS system, which is present on modern Formula 1 cars, usually only usable within 1 second of a car in front in order to aid in overtaking. Here we use it just as a bit of a technological advancement to try and eke some more pace out of the cars. Within any DRS zone, drivers are free to use the DRS no matter where they are, in relation to any other drivers. So as you jump into that DRS, the name of the game really is to open that wing flap as soon as possible. And Barry Clayton's going to be wanting to do some more, of course. Sorry, I thought Barry Clayton had exited the pits earlier. That's not appear to be the case because he's exiting the pits now. We see Barry Clayton rejoin the race. Now he needs to think of this as a little bit more practice perhaps for the reverse grid race, race 2, coming up in just a few minutes' time. About 20 minutes' time, we're going to be having reverse grid with the top end of the field, top 7, to be everyone, is complete reverse round. So the drivers who finish P6, P7 will be starting on the front row of the grid, and vice versa. Everyone else will be swapping around there. So Barry Clayton might be looking to use this as a bit of an extended practice session, a bit more of a kind of test of the tyres. See, can he push it maybe towards the C3 tyre? He was on the C3 tyre. Can he push it towards C4 maybe? I'd be shocked unless Alex Smith has found something that really does work, but I don't think he has. There's a lot of time lost there for Alex Smith, and right when it really could be, he could really do with this not happening at this point, but Alex Smith has to jump into the pits. What a mystery. Why are we seeing so many drivers in the pits? I'm sure someone is currently shouting at me in the comment section or will inform me in the paddock chat later on, but we're seeing so many pit stops here this evening and not seeing any rules enforcing such a thing, unless everyone's just kind of agreed we're going to have a pit stop to make it interesting, in which case I like the style. What we're seeing is Alex Smith has dropped onto that C3 tyre though, so this could just be coincidence. It could just be a little bit of scheming in my head that was maybe not relating to anything, because what could be the case is Alex Smith has jumped onto the C3 tyre, deciding perhaps that C4 just isn't going to make it throughout the rest of this race. He did have an incident earlier on that we saw. He'd already dropped down. Perhaps he just cooked those C4 tyres and decided it was probably quicker to jump onto a slightly harder compounder to bring the car home. He has, owing to the misfortunes of other drivers in this race, he has been able to maintain that P2 despite his pit stop. But what that means is that if he has any other incidents and he drops back down the order behind the likes of Paul Milne or Jack Hodgson, as it stands, Willingless will take the lead in this championship. Now, we are going to be in a position where, unless they score 0 points at all in the reverse race, which is impossible, well, I say impossible, unless they just decide 5 minutes into the race to no longer take part of DNF, the top 2, that being Willingless and Alex Smith, cannot finish this race, cannot finish this season rather, on equal points because of the fact that, as it stands, Alex Smith will be coming home in P2 with 7 points down on Willingless. They'll be finishing this race on equal points as it stands, but the final race will be the decider. So we are going to know by the end of this race, by the end of this evening, and it will be by a very close margin. Let's not forget that. We are going to know that we have a new victor, a new champion of the Formula Alpha Championship Series, roasted, of course, this season by Swarbrick.com. Guy Swarbrick, Alfa Romeo driver, editor, and organizer for the AROC Sim Racing Leads. He puts in a substantial amount of effort in order to see that these series happen, and it certainly pays off. I think it's a great fun set of series, and if you are thinking about participating, please do get involved. Please click this and put it onto all the AROC channels. We need some more drivers to be getting involved. We want some fresh blood, I think. So please do get involved. Guy put a lot of effort into this, and as I say, it certainly pays off. This is a fantastic racing series. Unfortunately, Guy can't be here this evening owing to some PC troubles. The world of sim racing sometimes does echo the world of real racing, and just like you have mechanical troubles, early this morning, Guy Troy found himself with PC-related issues. His boot drive actually completely failed by the sounds of things, so no longer able to use his PC as it stands. So Guy Swarbrick hopefully here this evening. Unfortunately, not able to be taking part, which is a great shame. Just over 8 minutes to go in this race now. 28 seconds is the gap between Wunderlist and Alex Smith. 7 points is the gap between the two in the championship standings. And for just a quick reminder, let's have a look at those championship standings right at this moment. This table will, of course, update as we head later on into the evening, in between race 1 and race 2. It is Alex Smith who leads, but as I say, only by 7 points. Willinglist in P2, and then we have Matt Daly in P3. Paul Millman a few points behind in P4. He was under threat from the likes of Andrew Ramad and Jack Hodson. Could still be under threat from Jack Hodson theoretically, but that is looking to be pretty much all said and done. Then we have Stephen Knight P7, Barry Clayton P8. He was hoping to make a few more points in this round. Things really have not gone his way. Alan Thomas running in P9, running in P5 in this race. Will be a decent result for Alan. And then we have Andy Craker rounding up the top 10 with 77 points on his tally. Heading through to the second sector now with Alex Smith there. It's looked a little bit more composed, looked a little bit more comfortable for Alex Smith at this phase of the race. It's 1:14.3 on that last lap. That's nearly echoing his absolute best time on the C4, the softer compound of tyre. That could be a couple of reasons. That could be more confidence in the car. That could be the tyres surviving better through the lap. Of course, the fuel load is getting lighter as we head later into this race as well. But Wunderlist has responded to that charge. His last lap was a 1:14.2. His best lap 1:14.1, of course. That was the purple sector through the middle sector on that previous lap. So I get the feeling now what we're starting to see is those slightly harder compounder tyre, which at this point we can sort of put Alex Smith into that category. Yes, C3, but it's a much younger C3 than everyone else's. What we're seeing is the harder, longer lasting compound of tyres are combining with a low fuel load to now show some impressive lap times at this phase of the race. That might die off towards the very end of the race, but at this phase we're seeing some speed coming back into these cars. Seeing some speed coming back into these cars. I've just caught myself there. I do apologise. Of course, I now, in the world of real racing, I do quite a bit of karting commentary now, and I'm ashamed to say some of it has still rubbed off on me. Speaking of karting commentary, I'll be involved in some karting at the weekend. It won't be commentary, so don't worry, you don't have to avoid YouTube to try and escape my voice once again. But I'll be taking part in a 24-hour kart race. I'm pleased to report we are liveried up in with AROC Racing League's stickers, so the world of AROC Racing Leagues will jump out into the real world once again. But yes, let's just say I'm glad to say that these two championships are coming to an end now, because I may not be here come next week, because 24-hour race, as I say, not doing too much in it, to be honest. But last time I did not too much in the 24-hour race in kart, I was completely and utterly dead. So if you'd like to pay respects to me, I'll be at the Teesside Autodrome over the weekend, and as I say, it should be an interesting weekend's worth of racing. Not taking the meter, unfortunately, just couldn't quite fit all the kit in, although it is more practical than you'd think. Just I've got plenty of drivers, plenty of kit to take up, and I can, in my other car, I can lie down and have a sleep, and I don't quite fit in the back of the meter, unfortunately. Wasn't that very relevant there. Anyway, we are looking at some racing drivers going very quick, which is what I won't be doing at the weekend, and that is Willinglist. He's a 1:15.8 on that last lap, so maybe not quite very quick, as I implied there, but Alex Smith certainly still is. He's in the 1:14 still, but that margin is just so wide between these two cars now. I'm not quite sure what Alex Smith can do in order to bring the fight to Willinglist at this point. He'd be praying for a miracle for himself and a disaster for Willinglist at this point, although it just spices things up, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? That now means that the points tally will be level pegging. Each driver will be on the same number of points in this fight between the top two. As we see Jack Cotton actually going for an overtake there. Has he gone for an overtake, or is that Paul Millman? That's Paul Millman heading into the hairpin, who's got back past Jack Cotton. No, sorry, that's just the timing system having a small error there. We're heading back onto the casino straight. 4 seconds between these two drivers. It looks to be that Jack Hudson is getting a little bit closer in terms of their lap times to 1:16.5 on the last lap for Jack Hudson, and it was a 1:16.1 for Paul. Sorry, it was 1:17.3 for Paul Millman. So at this rate, he is closing that gap. Is Jack Hudson on the DRS there as we head down the start-finish straight and get ready for another lap. Not quite close enough to be really putting that pressure on, but certainly close enough to occupy at least a little spot in his rear view mirror is Jack Hudson. And as I say, it will be both drivers in the fight for the championship, equal in terms of points. Both drivers will be on 308 points as we head into the next race. And Alex Smith is certainly closing that gap at this point. It's 27 seconds between Alex Smith and Will Inglis. That's because Alex Smith has just set a new fastest lap there, a 1:13.9. That's the fastest lap of the race so far. That's 2/10 faster than Will Inglis has managed to achieve so far this evening. And that was a purple middle sector. I think the middle sector does make all the difference here at Montreal, so it seems. You've got kind of the very end of the final sector there, the right-hander of turn 7 before you run down into the hairpin. And of course, sector 2 is quite a large sector in comparison to sector 3, so it includes that casino straight. And you've got to make sure you nail that hairpin, of course, because you're going to be carrying all that momentum all the way down through that casino straight and heading into that prime overtaking opportunity, where we saw the likes of Alex Albon performing some brilliant maneuvers on 2 cars at the same time in order to get the car out in front. Unfortunately, his race rather went the way of Matt Daly here this evening. But I'm pleased to report that here in the AROC Racing League, we're going to have another race to go so far this evening, ladies and gentlemen. What will be the final race of this season? Can you believe it? This has absolutely flown by, has this season. It might be something to do with the fact that I've actually only commentated on 8 or 9 rounds out of this entire run in the Formula Alpha. I've done a much better job in the Tory car, so I do apologise for missing a few rounds of the Formula Alpha running. But at least we're here to see what has been an interesting season off as we head back on board with Will Inglis. It's still 1:30 on the clock, and I thought we'd just have a quick look at him, see how he's doing. He's got some traffic to negotiate. That is traffic in the form of Alan Thomas there. Alan Thomas in the Red Bird Edition livery there. Livery he completely built up himself in various photo editing software. Probably Photoshop, I assume. I don't know. I tried it in Photoshop a few years back in an old Formula 1 game, and it worked. I tried it in the Seto as well, and that didn't work. And then I never attempted it ever again. So hats off to both Guy Swarbrick, Alan Thomas, and everyone else who participates in the production of liveries for this season. It's a really good looking car. I do believe Will Inglis has had a livery this entire season, and I have repeatedly downloaded the most up-to-date livery pack, and I haven't seen I promise I have tried to give Will Inglis a livery, but maybe this is why he's doing it. I'm not trying to take anything away from Will Inglis' driving ability, but it might be something to do with the fact that he's probably under the weight limit, because the car's got no paint on it whatsoever. He's just raw carbon in that car. And Jack Hudson has had a big off at the hairpin there. He is able to rejoin. There is Will Inglis, the aforementioned Will Inglis, but that is Paul Millman back out in front. I suspect a bit of a battle was brewing between those two as we head into the final 20 seconds on the clock in this race. And there we see Will Inglis. Will he make it home into, I think it will just about squeeze in one more lap here as he starts the next lap in just a moment. I don't think he will. No, he will. He will just about. This is the penultimate lap of the race, and I think there was tenths in that, ladies and gentlemen. I think if he'd been a little bit slower on the throttle, a little bit slower out of the final corner, a little bit slower past the wall of champions, this would have been the final lap of this race. But I'm pleased to report it's not just yet. It's still the penultimate lap of this race, because Will Inglis just about managed to make another lap in there. That was very close indeed. Alex Smith is just starting the next lap as well, and then the next driver is, well, Alan Thomas has just had a big incident, I believe. He's got no rear wing left, effectively. He's been in the pits once already, of course, to repair the car. The next driver will be Paul Millman, and he is a lap down, is Paul Millman. So it's only the top two in this race who are on the lead lap of the race. That is not a statistic you see every day. That's quite impressive. That just goes to show how strong the pace and the consistency has been at the top end of this field. As we now see, that is Will Inglis overtaking Paul Millman in just a moment, potentially. Although, to be honest, it looks like Paul Millman has some impressive straight line speed here as we head into that final corner. Paul Millman, of course, does give the room. There's no such thing as blue flags in the AROC racing leagues, but the drivers are very courteous to each other and will often give the space as they can, and that is the end of this race. Sorry for missing that, ladies and gentlemen. It is Will Inglis who takes the race victory, and it's Paul Millman coming home to round out the podium in P3 on the lap down, and then we're going to have Alex Smith coming home in just a moment. I think the system must have just got confused because that's how thin the margins were, so I apologise there. That was the final lap of this race. Alex Smith comes home in P2. Jack Hodson comes home in P4. What a great drive it has been for Will Inglis. Alan Thomas has rounded out the top 5 there. It's a good result for Alan there. A few more points on the cards, and it will be Barry Clayton coming home P6 in the end there. Bit of practice for the reverse grid race coming up in a few moments, but congratulations, Will Inglis. The fight is still on, ladies and gentlemen. It is now level pegging between our two front runners in this championship as we head into what is going to be the final round of the Formula Alpha Championship for the first half of 2024. So don't go anywhere. It's the reverse grid race coming up in just a few moments. I thought now was a good time to jump in, ladies and gentlemen, because reverse grid race not happening just yet, but some celebratory victory donuts for Will Inglis there. Alex Smith joining in on the fun as well. Good to see some camaraderie between rivals in this championship. Nearly some contact between rivals in this championship. Let's all keep friendly with each other before the reverse grid race comes up in a few moments. We'll catch you in a few moments then for that reverse grid race. Welcome back to the action, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are then on the grid for the final race of the Sawbrick.com Formula Alpha Championship. Just over 10 seconds now until lights out, and it's going to be a good one. Both of our contenders for the championship on equal points, equal drop scores, equal number of race wins. It is all to play for here this evening, but it's 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away. It's Barry Clayton and Alan Thomas on the front row of the grid. They're fighting alongside Alex Smith. It's Jack Hodson and Paul Millman heading into the first corner as well. It's a good start so far for Alex Smith. He's a fair ways ahead of Will Inglis, side by side with Alan Thomas. Contact between Alan Thomas and Alex Smith. That's a disastrous start, as it turns out, for Alex Smith there. It's going to be Alex Smith and Will Inglis fighting at the back end of the grid. This is a very fine game now. This very fine line now that Alex Smith needs to navigate, really, because he has got to try and keep Will Inglis at bay, but he's also got to try and make headway, to try and push his way through the field. He's currently a few seconds ahead of Will Inglis at the moment. Let's see if we can keep that momentum up. We don't have the tower yet to be able to adjust our position on track, so we're going to be automatically following Paul Millman on screen at this point. And Paul Millman's in the mix there with Alan Thomas. Alan Thomas up into P4 at this moment in time. And there is Paul Millman, and there is Alex Smith as well, as we get smoke on the exit of the hairpin there. A little bit of wheel spin as the tyres are not quite in a comfortable region. The fuel load's quite high as well. Speaking of those tyres, let's have a quick look at them when we can. We're on board at the moment with Jack Hodson. He's fighting Barry Clayton for this race victory at this moment in time. And there we see the drivers heading through to start the next lap one by one. That's Alan Thomas currently running in P3. That could be his first real podium in the AROC Racing League, I believe, certainly in this championship, if not. And then we have Paul Millman running in P4. He's got to keep Alex Smith behind. Alex Smith certainly doesn't want him to keep Alex Smith. Oh my, what? That's, I didn't realise we were performing ballet in the AROC Racing League this evening to send us off there. And well done to Alan Thomas's pit crew for getting the car so quickly repaired. That's an odd one. Not quite sure what happened there. Either way, then now promotes Paul Millman into P3. Everyone else seemed to make it out of that part of the track unscathed, I'm pleased to report. Bit of a commentator's curse for Alan Thomas there, so I will hold my hands up there and apologise. But it's Paul Millman currently running in P3, trying to fend off the likes of Alex Smith and Will Inglis. And as I say, they are on equal points after drop scores. So all that matters is that one of these drivers outscores the other, and they will take the championship. It can be by 1 point. It doesn't matter. As long as it's outscored, that's all that matters. If they get into a DNF situation, I presume it comes down to who DNFs last in this race. Whoever leaves the session latest will determine who comes last, because they've all got equal wins. They've all got equal points. It's all oh so close. I can't remember the last time we had a championship this close. It'll be a few seasons ago now. Anyway, it's Paul Millman doing an almighty job of fending these drivers off. Is anyone reminiscent perhaps of Abu Dhabi in 2010 with Fernando Alonso and Vitaly Petrov? Because I think I am a little bit. Fernando Alonso, of course, in that 2010 race was very much in the mix for the championship. Could have taken that championship were it not for Vitaly Petrov keeping him behind out in front. And what we're seeing here is Alex Smith not able to break away from the threat of Will Inglis. He's desperate to try and get past Paul Millman. But of course, Paul Millman wants to fight for that podium. Why wouldn't you? As we see defending, and it's going to go 3 wide into the hairpin there. And there we have Will Inglis side by side with Alex Smith. Who's going to get the better run onto the casino straight? It is Alex Smith who wins out in the end there. Alex Smith played the safe card, tried to go the long way around, and it was actually Will Inglis who just darted for the inside of the corner, jumping late on the brakes, and it nearly works for him. It could still work for him, as we are, in fact, side by side there. It's going to be Alex Smith who comes out on top, and that's why Jack Hodson has had a bit of a collision, I suspect, with Barry Clayton at some point. Either way, it's now Alex Smith in P2, Will Inglis in P3. So much going on in the second half of that lap, ladies and gentlemen. We do carry on, though, and it's Alex Smith just in front of Will Inglis, half a second separating these two drivers. I should mention both of these drivers on the C2 tyre this time around, and that is a safe play, I think, there by Alex Smith. Alex Smith saying, right, I'm going to do whatever you do, Will Inglis. Let's go on the same compounder tyre. All it comes down to now is perhaps a little bit of setup. This is, of course, an open setup championship. But it all just comes down to talent at this point. They've got clear air out in front of them. They're on the same compounder tyre. No excuses now, everyone. It's just an out-and-out battle for this championship. I should mention, not to be dismissive at all of the achievements of Barry Clayton so far in this race. He is 5 seconds clear of the rest of the pack. He's having a great race so far, a stark contrast to the race he was having in the race previous, where he ended up DNF, well, not DNFing, but jumping into the pits for 8 laps and pretty much being out of contention. So this is a great turnaround in fortunes for Barry there. We're going to head through this final corner once more. No more Jack Hodson's littering the circuit at this point, but we start the next lap. It's going to be Alex Smith, who's defending Willingless in the DRS, not only in the DRS, but in the slipstream as well. Of course, Alex Smith can go into the slipstream, as I have said, but there is still, Alex Smith can go into the DRS, just like Willingless can. But it's Willingless who's going to have that tiny little bit of slipstream advantage. It's one thing to have the drag reduction on the rear wing, but you can get the rest of the car having a bit of clear air to run through, a bit of disturbed air, if you will, to run through in order to have less air to punch through and to have a higher top speed, a little bit less air resistance there for Willingless's car. 0.7 of a second separating Willingless and Alex Smith. It seems to be Alex Smith is reasonably in control at this point, and I'm not going to tempt fate. Alex Smith is, of course, a very capable driver indeed. What we've seen pretty much none of this season, and I'm pleased to report, what we used to see back in the RSS Supreme days or the Tartas FAO4 days, is a little bit of inconsistency creeping in for Alex Smith every now and again. It would come down to not even high pressure kind of points in the championship or important races. Just every now and again, Alex Smith would show this blistering pace, especially in his PS5 controller days, although I suspect he's still on the PS5 controller. Correct me if I'm wrong there. But what we would see is every now and again a mistake would creep in that would pretty much ruin his races. So many race wins and podiums Alex Smith has given up in the past that he really can't afford to this evening. We've seen that improve. It's a few times now where I've said, oh, please don't mess this one up, and he hasn't in yet. It's come through, and he's absolutely shone. But Willingless, unfortunately, is on impeccable form as well. Willingless has such great pace and deserves this championship just as much as Alex Smith does. Alex Smith so strong early on in the season. Willingless utterly dominant in the mid-season as well. And it comes down to half a second. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This is absolutely fantastic. Through that first sector there, Alex Smith 0.3 of a second slower than Willingless just behind. Sorry there, completely wrong. Alex Smith 0.2 of a second slower, so not complete, just a little bit wrong there. But perhaps more importantly, these two are in the midst of battle at this point. They're going to be slowing each other down a little bit, if not entirely. Barry Clayton out in front in 28 in the first sector. He is about half a second faster than these two at this point. He is absolutely flying along, is Barry Clayton. He is effectively checking out. As it stands, these two, Alex Smith and Willingless, will be scoring 3 points apart. There'll be 3 points in it between these two drivers. Very fine margins indeed. As we head back onto the next lap now. 6 seconds separate Willingless and Barry Clayton. Only 0.7 separate Willingless and Alex Smith. We've got some close running further down the order as well. It's Paul Millman and Jack Hodson. Paul Millman defending from Jack Hodson this time around. Jack Hodson on the C3 compounder tyre, the only competitor in this evening's race. Sorry, completely wrong. Once again, I'm just spewing absolute lies at this stage, ladies and gentlemen. It is Barry Clayton, our race leader on the C3, that medium compounder tyre, as is Jack Hodson as well. Everyone else on that harder C2 tyre. Alex Smith was brave early on to try and make the C4 work, and it unfortunately did not in race 1. That's why he's opted for the safe choice and gone for that C2, just so he can not have to focus on anything else other than fighting Willingless in this race. We're seeing a second margin between these two fighting for P4, less than a second margin between Willingless and Alex Smith as they head now into that final corner of the lap. Meanwhile, out in front, Barry Clayton 1:14.8 on that last lap. He's in the 14s already, 7 laps into this race, 10 minutes, and absolutely flying is Barry Clayton. This is what we missed out on in race 1. It's some impressive pace from Barry Clayton. Purple sector 2 that time round, as I say, on the C3 compounder tyre, so we could see that pace begin to drop off potentially later on. I suspect the C3 is a bit more resilient to that than the C4. But it's the C2s for our two drivers fighting for this championship. And not only are they close to the championship, not only were they have they been close so many times this season? They're close in this race as well, as I say, and as correctly pointed out by Winglis and Alex Smith in the interval as well. Equal race wins, equal on drop score, and they're going to be next to each other in race 2. What more could you ask for, ladies and gentlemen? Seven-tenths apart, making that, well, still 7/10 apart as we head into the final part of the lap. Once again, it is such a quick lap here at Montreal. It is one of those infamous F1 circuits. I'm glad it remains on the calendar. It provides some fantastic racing. The highlight of not only this season, but I think quite a few races before that as well, was the previous race. So many drivers in the mix, just like we have here in this race as well. I keep mistaking Winglis and rear wing for being on the DRS there. It's just the sun reflecting off the carbon fibre in the car. It's not the sun. It's not the DRS open at that point, because that would be rather brave, being through the corners there. It's not a DRS zone as well. This is a DRS zone though, as we head up through to the second sector now. Purple sector 1 for Winglis at that time around, 0.3 of a second faster on this occasion, and gaining on Alex Smith. Now in that, he's just stayed constantly in that slipstream in order to try and eke out every advantage that he can. I don't know what these two drivers are running in terms of setup. As I mentioned earlier in this race, drivers can change their setup in pretty much any metric. And one of those important setup changes that you can make in this car is all to do with the energy recovery systems. The MGUK, the motor generator unit Kinetic, and the motor generator unit Heat, the MGUH as well. The MGUH is attached to the turbocharging system on this 1.6 turbo hybrid engine, and the MGUK is attached to the, I believe it might be attached to the flywheel. Oh no, I could be wrong there, but Barry Clayton has certainly gone wrong there. That's a big off for Barry Clayton. He is stuck on the infield there. The gravel trap sort of material there, which I think is actually grass in a set of course designed to stop the drivers' cars from hurtling across the track, has brought an end to Barry Clayton's dominant race. What a shame. It was going so well for him. A real turnaround in fortunes for that driver there. But what it means is the stakes are even higher as we head into this final part of the final race of this final round of the season. We're side by side between Alex Smith and Winglis heading into the hairpin. Winglis has the inside there, but is he going to bottle it and go too wide into the corner? He is. We're going to be side by side now, Alex Smith and Winglis, as we head down onto the casino straight. Who has the upper hand now? This is just a straight test of straight line speed, and it's going to be Alex Smith who has the inside line of the final corner, both on the DRS, of course. Margins oh so close, and it's Alex Smith who takes the race lead back after a brave attempt, a bold attempt from Winglis, but unfortunately he just went too deep into the hairpin there, and it cost him momentum on the exit. That brings Alex Smith back into the lead of this race. As I was saying, the stakes are now so much higher in this, the final race of the season, because not only are they fighting for the championship, they're fighting for the race win here as well. And as we're seeing, they are pretty much level pegging in terms of pace. There's so little to discern between them. It's going to be an exciting final 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. In terms of their best laps, then, it's Winglis with the best lap out of these two. It's a 1:14.8 with Alex Smith being a 1:15.1. On that last lap, a 15.6, perhaps unsurprisingly, owing to that battle, and Winglis a 15.4. Those two are the only drivers in the 15s, apart from Barry Clayton, who set the 1:14.6 earlier on. Midfielder in the 17s at the moment. Alan Thomas in the 20s. He's picked some damage up early on. He's going to be trundling the car home to try and pick up some points at least. This time around, though, it looks a little bit less close. Looks a little bit more comfortable between these two as we head towards the end of this lap. Final 11 minutes of this race. Here we are heading through the hairpin once again. Willingless this time trying to go around the outside. Alex Smith defends on the inside. It's still oh so close. Smoke rising from both cars as they spin the wheels on exit. Willingless just looks a little bit more racy this time around. Is very close indeed in that slipstream. He's going to go for a move, I suspect here. It's going to at least position the car on the outside, but that does allow Alex Smith to defend. Is he going to go too deep into the wall of champions? He is not. And we start the next lap still. Willingless behind at this point. Half a second separating these two front runners now. Tenths this time around as we head through some halfway stage of Sector 2. Got the left-hander next to negotiate, some traffic to negotiate as well. Final 10 minutes of this race now. Half a second separating these two drivers. It's all going to be about who gets the better run through this hairpin. Now, this time around, Alex Smith can benefit here from that traffic. It's a good point to be with this traffic. It all depends on the straight line performance of Alan, of course, but not only will Alex have the slipstream, he will have the DRS as well, of course. That extra slipstream giving him a little bit of a boost, protecting him ever so slightly from Willingless. But it is still no one's championship to win at this point. It's still anyone's game. It's all up in the air at this moment in time. Alex Smith heads on to the next lap, matching Willingless in terms of pace. Willingless ever so slightly faster that time round. Final 8 minutes of this race now. Meanwhile, Paul Millman is just behind Jack Hutton. Jack Hutton has worked his way back up into P3. A quiet podium on the cards here for Jack Hutton. A bit of a tumultuous start to the weekend and to this race, but seems to be on for a decent recovery. Paul Millman, of course, taking a podium in the previous race, is still looking to score some decent points here in race 2 as well. Barry Clayton with that very unfortunate off earlier on at this point on track. He led this race at the start for quite a while. Quite a convincing lead as well. Unfortunately, finds himself running in P5 at the moment. Alan Thomas running in P6 with some more points on the cards here. We go back on board though with Willingless heading back into that hairpin. Half a second separating Alex Smith and Willingless. The 3 prime overtaking opportunities on this track are where we've just headed through now, the hairpin. Then the final corner at the end of the Casino straight and running through the wall of champions, and then we have the first corner of the lap as well. But it's going to be this final corner where Willingless tries to get a move on, is not going to be able to make it stick, goes wide on exit there, gets oh so close to the wall of champions, closer than I would get, and still stays behind at this point. That actually cost him a few tenths, that attempted move there. And of course, what this does as well, not only is it a slight knock to the confidence perhaps as your patience begins to wear thin, it pushes the tyres so much harder in the dirty air of Alex Smith's car. Willingless has to endure with slightly higher engine temperatures, although a set of course doesn't simulate that all that much. Not only that, but you've got a bit more scrubbing because of the dirty air means the car has ever so slightly less downforce. Again, ground effect car means not too much of a concern, but still at least a concern. But not only that, you have these slightly higher temperatures from all this battling and attempted overtake. It's going to wear out his tyres faster, but we are going to be nearly side by side as we head into the final couple of corners of Sector 2. I thought for a second a move was going to be attempted. So easy to end up in the wall on that part of the lap. We're going to go for the hairpin once again, though, going deep on into that corner. It's going to give a bit of a switchback, though. He goes narrow on exit. He's going to have that slipstream once again. He's actually gaining, has more momentum as we head onto the Casino straight once again. And defending is Alex Smith. Where does Willingless go? Oh, that is a big incident for Willingless, and his hopes of a championship potentially dashed here. That is disaster for Willingless, ladies and gentlemen. We saw Alex Smith defending. We saw him darting a little bit. It wasn't too aggressive. It wasn't like he was just seesawing across the track. He did pick an area of the track he was going to occupy, and he was moving within that. And then the rate of kind of collision, the delta within two cars was just getting a little bit too thin. And unfortunately for Willingless, he tried to avoid the swerve left at the last second, ended up in the barrier, and span round, has put severe damage on his car. That gap between Alex Smith and Willingless now stands at 6 seconds. It's certainly not completely over yet, but you have to say at this point, Alex Smith, it's looking ever so slightly more comfortable for Alex at this point. Alex does not have the damage that Will Inglis has on his car and has a bit of a comfort margin as well. At this point, Alex can start to focus on maybe bring his tyres into a more comfortable window. He can shave a couple of tenths off the laps now and start to make sure the car is being pushed quite as hard, and he can make sure he's got a little bit of grip left in the tank towards the end of the race. He will be in a very good position indeed. Ten seconds now the margin between Alex Smith and Will Inglis. Of course, post-incident, it's not completely all said and done, as Will Inglis is now getting pressured by Alan Thomas. If you have such a spin out like that, not only are you going to have pretty much no downforce left on the car from such a big accident with the damage to the aerodynamic devices on the car, but the tyres are going to be in such an unhappy window as well. As you spin around the track like that, the tyre temperatures absolutely soar up, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy then. As you get back on track and try to push the car once more to try and keep some pace up, the tyres are already boiling hot, and you're just asking more of them. They're going to keep that temperature up, if not build even more temperature, and the issue soon spirals out of control. So it's a very fine balancing act to try and bring the car back into a comfortable window once again. And it looks like, for the most part, Will Inglis has been able to do so, but we're still seeing that time tumbling off. Alex Smith is in the pits. 3 minutes to go in this race. Our race leader, our championship hopeful, and for so long in this race, our championship leader has dropped back into the pits. Not sure at all why this is, but this is going to mean that Alex Smith drops back from the lead of this race. He exits the pits now. This is a very odd call from Alex Smith, if it was a call that he made. I'm not sure if he had a penalty to serve or something. What this does, though, is promote Will Inglis into the lead of this race. As it stands, Will Inglis will take this championship. We only have around about 3 or 4 laps left in this race at most, ladies and gentlemen. It's fresh tyres for Alex Smith. It's C3s as well. He's gone for the softer compound of tyre. Alex Smith. I'm going to... if I have a heart attack because you've just done this for the fun, just because you thought it would make it more spicy and interesting, then I am not too pleased, sir. This is a very brave call from Alex Smith here, as he has the C3 compound tyre on. He's already on the rear diffuser of Will Inglis. Makes contact with him just to rub salt into the wound, as if that wasn't already painful enough to overtake him in the midst of a slight collision earlier on. To then repeat the same thing again, it's just really insulting. But I'm sure Will Inglis doesn't feel that way. Alex Smith, at this point, just showing off, trying to keep us all on the edge of our seats, ladies and gentlemen, as we see Alex Smith does take the lead of this race back once more, and certainly is going to be confident now that he's going to be able to bring the car home with the C3 tyres that are fresh, brand new. I think he's going for fastest lap, ladies and gentlemen. I wouldn't be shocked if he is. Next question, I want to jump back onto C4s. Could have gone even faster still. 2.5 seconds clear of Will Inglis already. I suppose that could also be almost an apology, if you will, for that earlier incident. I don't think it was entirely Alex Smith's fault there. I think that was a racing incident. But maybe that was Alex Smith's attempt at giving Will Inglis another opportunity. He still does lead, it does Alex Smith. As he just tries to, if things apparently weren't interesting enough already, the stakes weren't high enough. And no stakes here. The green and black and have fortunately replaced a far cooler brand, but no stakes here. But there are other stakes, and they're very high. Alex Smith just thought he'd raise those ever so slightly. What we're seeing now is Jack Cotton actually overtakes Will Inglis. It goes from bad to worse for Will Inglis, of course, in the contention for the race lead at one point. Now finds himself down in P3. Nearly a second behind Jack Cotton as well. Will Inglis' car, I suspect, is completely and utterly... I'm not going to say undrivable, it's just not happy at all. Is not happy at all after that early race incident. I think Alex Smith, he's not going to be happy for the incident, but Alex Smith is going to be someone who is pretty happy, it must be said. Early on in the championship, it looked good. And it's looking good now, that's all I'm going to say. Because I've seen so many times in the past, the commentator's curse can certainly be a weapon of mine, even if I don't wish to use it. It's 7 seconds now, the margin between Alex Smith, Jack Hockenheim, 9 seconds between Alex Smith and Will Inglis, and they have a few seconds between Barry Clayton and Paul Millman. There is Alan Thomas in the frame as well. A few points to take away from this race as the timer does indeed hit 0. This is the penultimate lap of this race. We go back on board with Alex Smith. This previous lap, I should mention, was of course the fastest lap of the race so far. Goes purple through this sector as well. So 14.4 on the last lap, 28.4 sector 1. That's purple, as I say. Delta's looking good as well. Got about 8 tenths faster as it stands on this lap. The DRS has been deployed, and we dive into this final corner at 4. That'll be one last time under full racing conditions, really, as we start what is now the final lap of this race, ladies and gentlemen. It was purple sector 2 as well, and a personal best sector 3 at 13.7. That is the fastest racing lap we have seen so far, ladies and gentlemen. That is a blistering lap time from Alex Smith, and he's just going out in style at this point, I suspect. A strong drive from Alex Smith then. It didn't quite work out in race 1. Will Inglis certainly had the upper hand, and in race 2, it was certainly challenging. Will Inglis was putting that pressure on. Fantastic racing from both there. We saw a few attempted overtakes, none of which could stick, unfortunately, for Will Inglis. And Alex Smith! No! Get that car back underway, because, as I say, my heart can't take it. He has no front wing left, done Alex Smith. There is Jack Hodson. As it stands, that wouldn't actually change the championship, because Barry Clayton and Jack Hodson are ahead of Will Inglis, and all Alex Smith needs to do is outscore Will Inglis by 1 point. But you got to make it easy for yourself sometimes, Alex Smith. As I say, occasionally those mistakes do just crop through, and I think at this point Alex Smith is just doing it to scare me mainly. But so strong in the first part of the season. It wasn't looking too good in the middle part, but he's brought it back at the end, as Alex Smith. He takes the race victory and takes the championship as well. Congratulations, Alex Smith. A thoroughly deserved championship at the end there. You made it difficult on the final lap and in the final phase of this race, but these victory donuts are going to be well deserved. It's Jack Hodson who comes home P2. Barry Clayton comes home P3. Will Inglis P4 in the end. What could have been for Will Inglis. Commiserations and congratulations at the same time. Incredible pace in the mid-season of the in mid-part of this season, and really brought that challenge at the end of this season in this race here at Montreal. Just unfortunately, it was not to be in the end. Will Inglis joins in on the victory donuts as well. And then we have, as I say, Jack Hodson and Barry Clayton rounding out the podium. Paul Millman coming home P5. Alan Thomas coming home P6, partaking in those victory donuts. But here are our 2 championship contenders fighting until the bitter end, congratulating each other, I am sure. What a fantastic season that was. Our first season, of course, with the full hybrid Formula 1 cars. Challenging for some drivers, but rewarding for others, rewarding for the likes of Will Inglis and for Alex Smith as well, who does take the trophy here this season. It's a Swarbrick.com Formula Alpha Championship for the first half of 2024, and it goes to Alex Smith. Thank you very much for watching, and a good night, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to jump off, but I know what's going to... I know what... I'm expecting it already. Here is our season victor then, as it stands. A burnout in front of the commentary car. What a way to ruin the paintwork. Thank you very much there, Alex Smith. I'll let you get away with this one this time around. Differential might need a little bit of looking at on your Formula 1 car. I'm not surprised after the racing has had to endure this evening. But well done to everyone involved. Thank you very much to all the competitors. Thank you very much to AROC Racing Leagues for this season. Thank you very much to Guy Schwarber for organising the events. It has been a fantastic season's worth of racing, ladies and gentlemen, and we will take a few week break, of course, from the main Swarbrick.com Formula Alpha Championship, but I'm pleased to report the second half of 2022, as it stands, we should be enjoying some more racing later on this year. So I'll let that burn out, bring an end to this evening's racing. Thank you very much for watching, and good night.